Why you wake up to pee at night after 60, it's not your bladder. Every single night, tens of millions of people over 60 wake up 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 times just to use the bathroom. And almost every one of them has been told the same thing. It's your prostate. It's your age. It's just what happens now. Take this medication, manage the symptoms, and learn to live with it. I'm your host here at Health Crux, and today I want to show you something that clinical research has confirmed but almost nobody explains clearly. In a large percentage of people over 60 who wake up repeatedly at night to urinate, the bladder itself is completely healthy. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. The real explanation has far more to do with your circulation, your legs, and gravity than it does with your bladder or your prostate. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this happens, and what you can actually do about it starting tonight. What 3 a.m. actually feels like. It's 2:45 in the morning. The bedroom is completely dark, the house is quiet in that particular way it only gets in the middle of the night. No traffic, no voices, just the faint hum of a refrigerator somewhere down the hall. You'd finally fallen into real sleep about an hour ago, the deep kind, not just drifting. And then it starts. Not dramatic, just pressure. Faint at first. You roll over, pull the blanket up, tell yourself it's nothing. But the pressure builds, and eventually you give in. Feet on the cold floor, you don't bother with the light, you've made this walk so many times you know it by heart. You come back to bed, lie down, and real sleep is gone. Your mind starts running. You lie there for half an hour, finally drift off, and it happens again. You wake up in the morning feeling hollow, and somewhere in the back of your mind is a thought you've been pushing away for months: is this just what getting older feels like? Based on what clinical research actually shows, for most people, the answer is no. This isn't simply aging. It's a mechanical process happening in your body every single day, one that has a mechanical explanation, and often, a mechanical solution. Consider what this typically looks like in practice. A retired teacher in his late 60s starts noticing he's up 3 times most nights. He cuts out coffee entirely, stops drinking anything after 6 p.m., even tries limiting soup at dinner. Nothing changes. His doctor runs a standard urine test, everything comes back normal, and he's told his bladder is simply aging along with the rest of him. He accepts it, because what else is there to do when every test comes back clean? This pattern repeats constantly, and it's precisely why nocturia is so often mismanaged. The tests that get run are almost always bladder-focused, checking for infection, checking prostate size, checking urine composition. Rarely does anyone check what's happening in the legs, because nighttime urination has historically been treated as a urological issue first, when in a large share of cases it isn't a urological issue at all. What you were probably told, and why it's incomplete. If you're a man, you were probably told it's your prostate, given a medication, and told to come back in 6 months. If you're a woman, you may have been told it's menopause, or a weak pelvic floor, and given some exercises to try. If you pushed further and asked why nothing was working, you may have been told this is simply normal for someone your age. That explanation, while common, is incomplete. Medical research on nocturia, the clinical term for waking at night to urinate, has consistently found that in the majority of older adults, the underlying issue isn't the bladder at all. It's something called nocturnal polyuria, a condition where the kidneys produce an unusually large volume of urine specifically at night. Research published in geriatric medicine journals estimates that nocturnal polyuria affects as many as 77 to 93% of elderly women and men respectively, and by age 80, it's believed to affect roughly 9 out of 10 people. The right question isn't what's wrong with my bladder. It's where is all of this fluid coming from at night, and why? Once you understand the answer, the rest starts to make sense. Why your legs are filling your bladder at night. Here's a simple way to picture what's happening. Take a plastic bottle half full of water and stand it upright. The water sits at the bottom. Lay it on its side, and the water redistributes evenly. Your body follows a similar principle, governed by gravity. For roughly 16 hours a day, you're upright. Gravity pulls fluid, including blood and the water between your cells, downward toward your feet and ankles. When we're younger, small one-way valves inside our leg veins, combined with muscle movement from walking, help push that blood back up toward the heart efficiently. But as we age, particularly past 60, these valves can weaken and vein walls lose some of their elasticity, a condition doctors call venous insufficiency. When this happens, fluid seeps out of small blood vessels into the surrounding soft tissue of the legs. Over the course of a day, that fluid can quietly accumulate, sometimes to the point where a sock leaves a visible groove in the skin by evening. Most people notice that groove and think nothing of it. In reality, it can be a sign of a small fluid reservoir sitting in the leg tissue. Here's the part that explains the whole pattern. The moment you lie down at night, that dynamic reverses. Fluid that spent all day pooling in your legs begins moving back into general circulation, because gravity is no longer holding it down there. Multiple clinical studies, including research published through university hospital programs studying venous insufficiency specifically, have confirmed this exact mechanism. Fluid accumulated in the legs during the day is mobilized back into the bloodstream once a person reclines, increasing nighttime urine production. Your body interprets this returning fluid as extra volume in your circulatory system, and your kidneys respond by filtering and excreting it, filling your bladder. There's a hormone specifically involved in this process, called atrial natriuretic peptide, released by the heart when it senses increased blood volume returning from the legs. Its job is essentially to signal the kidneys to offload fluid quickly, which is part of why the urge to urinate after lying down can feel so sudden and strong. It's a direct hormonal response, not just a slowly filling bladder. You wake up, you go, but the process isn't finished. There's often more fluid still mobilizing from your legs, so the cycle can repeat 2 or 3 more times before morning. This is why you can stop drinking fluids at 6 p.m., go to bed thirsty, and still wake up multiple times overnight. You're not drinking too much. You're draining your own legs. There's also a second hormonal factor at play as we age. A hormone called vasopressin, which normally increases at night to reduce urine production during sleep, tends to decline in production as people get older. Research on aging and nocturia has identified this reduced nighttime vasopressin as a separate contributing factor, meaning older adults are often dealing with 2 compounding issues at once: more fluid arriving at the kidneys from the legs, and a weaker nighttime signal telling the kidneys to slow down. Together, these 2 factors explain why nocturia becomes so much more common after 60, and why it's rarely just one simple cause. Why this actually matters beyond sleep. This isn't just about interrupted sleep, though that alone matters enormously. Research published through the National Institutes of Health has found that nocturia is associated with nearly double the risk of hip fracture in older adults, largely due to nighttime falls during those groggy walks to the bathroom. Separate research has found that men who wake more than 3 times a night to urinate show significantly higher mortality risk compared to those who don't, likely because frequent nocturia is often a visible symptom of an underlying cardiovascular or circulatory issue rather than a cause in itself. In other words, this symptom is often your body's way of flagging something happening with your heart or circulation, long before it shows up anywhere else. There's a broader pattern worth understanding here too. Conditions like congestive heart failure, chronic kidney disease, and obstructive sleep apnea are all separately known to contribute to nocturnal polyuria through slightly different mechanisms, but all of them share a common thread: fluid or pressure regulation problems that only become obvious once the body is lying flat. This is exactly why sleep specialists now recommend that anyone with persistent, unexplained nocturia, especially if it's paired with symptoms like shortness of breath on exertion, unusual fatigue, or loud snoring, be evaluated for these underlying conditions rather than simply prescribed a bladder medication and sent home. A simple test you can do right now. You don't need any equipment for this, just your hands and about 30 seconds. Find your shin bone, the hard, flat surface along the front of your lower leg. Press the pad of your thumb firmly against that bone, about 4 to 6 inches above your ankle. Hold for a full 10 seconds, then release, and run a fingertip across the same spot. If your skin springs back immediately, there's no significant fluid buildup there. But if your thumb leaves a small pit or indentation that takes several seconds to disappear, that's a visible sign of fluid accumulation in the tissue, sometimes called pitting edema. It might not look swollen to the eye at all, but that pit is evidence that fluid is sitting there, waiting to mobilize the moment you lie down. 3 everyday habits that can make this worse. Hidden sodium in an otherwise healthy dinner. Most people don't add salt at the table and assume that means they're eating low sodium. But roughly 80% of dietary sodium doesn't come from a salt shaker at all. It comes from processed meats, canned goods, bread, hard cheese, and condiments. A dinner of whole wheat bread, deli turkey, and canned soup can easily contain over 2,000 milligrams of sodium without a single added shake of salt. When sodium enters your bloodstream, your body initially retains water to dilute it, but overnight, your kidneys begin actively excreting that sodium, pulling water along with it, right around the time you're trying to sleep. Evening sugar, even from healthy snacks. Simple carbohydrates, even from something like an apple, sweetened tea, or crackers with honey, cause a spike in blood sugar and insulin, which initially signals your kidneys to retain water. A few hours later, right as you've likely fallen asleep, blood sugar drops and your kidneys shift into active excretion mode, often triggering that first nighttime bathroom trip. A nightcap that feels relaxing but backfires. Alcohol suppresses a hormone your brain normally releases at night to slow kidney activity. Without that signal, your kidneys continue working at full capacity through the night, which is part of why a drink before bed so often leads to a more disrupted, not more restful, night's sleep. Medication timing that quietly works against you. Many people over 60 take at least one medication that affects fluid balance, whether it's a blood pressure medication, a diuretic, or even certain antidepressants. Taking these in the evening rather than the morning can significantly increase nighttime urine production. This isn't something to change on your own, but it is absolutely worth a specific conversation with your doctor or pharmacist, asking directly whether any of your evening medications could be shifted earlier in the day. This single adjustment, timing rather than dosage, resolves a meaningful portion of nocturia cases on its own. A practical routine to try starting tonight. None of what follows requires a prescription or a procedure, just a few consistent daily habits. In the morning, before coffee, try standing with your feet shoulder-width apart, rising onto your toes about 1 to 2 centimeters, then letting your heels drop back down with a light, firm impact. Repeat this about 30 times. This activates the pump action of your calf muscles and leg vein valves, encouraging blood to move upward rather than pooling from the very start of the day. If standing isn't comfortable, lying in bed and gently shaking your raised arms and legs for about 60 seconds achieves a similar effect. During the day, aim to drink roughly 70% of your total daily fluid intake before 4 p.m., then taper to smaller sips in the evening. This isn't about restricting fluids overall, which research shows is often ineffective on its own, it's about shifting the timing. In the evening, about 1 to 1.5 hours before bed, try lying down and elevating your legs above heart level, using a wall, couch arm, or a couple of pillows, for 15 to 20 minutes. This encourages fluid to mobilize and get processed by your kidneys while you're still awake, rather than after you've fallen asleep. Many people feel a noticeable urge to urinate roughly 30 to 40 minutes after doing this. Compression stockings during the day can also help for those with visible leg swelling, though they shouldn't be worn while sleeping. Finally, once you're in bed with the lights off, some people find gentle pelvic floor contractions, holding for a few seconds and releasing, repeated 20 to 30 times, helpful as a complementary step, particularly for women. What to actually do with this information? If your socks consistently leave a groove by evening, if you notice pitting when you press your shin, or if nothing you've tried specifically for your bladder has made a real difference, it may be worth having a conversation with your doctor about your circulation and heart function, not just your bladder or prostate. Conditions like venous insufficiency, early heart strain, or even sleep apnea can all contribute to nighttime urination, and identifying the actual underlying cause matters far more than simply managing the symptom indefinitely. Your bladder, in most of these cases, was never the problem. It's simply a signal, telling you, night after night, that something elsewhere in your body deserves a closer look. Wrapping up. Which part of this surprised you the most, the leg fluid connection, the sodium in everyday foods, or the pitting test? Let me know in the comments, and if you try the thumb test tonight, I'd genuinely like to know what you find. And if someone in your life has been losing sleep the same way, a parent, a spouse, a friend, consider sending them this video. It might be the explanation they've been waiting months to hear. Everything in this video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If nighttime urination is affecting your sleep or quality of life, please speak with your doctor to identify the specific underlying cause for your situation. Thanks for watching Health Crux. See you in the next one.